Four extra large sandwiches of exactly the same size were ordered for M students, where M is greater than 4. Three of the sandwiches were evenly divided among the students. Since 4 students did not want any of the fourth sandwich, it was evenly divided among the remaining students. If Carol ate one piece from each of the 4 sandwiches, the amount of sandwich that she ate would be what fraction of a whole extra large sandwich? Yeah. So, hey everyone, it's Ryan Hines again, and this is my bi-weekly-ish podcast in hindsight, talking entrepreneurship and physical and mental wellness. We'll deconstruct past events and focus on learnings for a positive future. So let's go. For today, there's one thing I would say that's consistent, and this ongoing quest, like I said in that intro, this ongoing quest for physical and mental wellness, right? And I added that ish, bi-weekly ish, because, well, as a podcast evolves, that's where I'm at with it right now. And I'm totally fine with that. Main reason, because what you just heard at the beginning of this episode is a question from the GMAT. That's what I am currently studying for, the GMAT. So answer that question about Carol's sandwich about 30 more times, correct these modifiers, verb tenses, idioms in a billion sentences, it feels like. Read these obnoxiously long, boring, least interesting passages, and then wrap it up. Oh yeah, you got to write an essay too. So that's where I'm at feeling right now, right, with the GMAT. So sure, it doesn't sound all that fun and exciting. And, I like to think of myself as someone always looking for the positive and trying to see that brighter side, right? But even people like me and all of us, it's okay to have that moment of and recognize, like, oh shit, this is frustrating, this is annoying, this is hard, this is tough, and it's put me down, right? So um, not necessarily the funnest thing right now, studying for that, but trying to approach it with this shift in a mindset, and kind of like I talked about in that last episode with the both and thinking. So it's giving yourself permission to have both of those feelings. Maybe I can feel pissed off and excited all at the same time, right? Both and they can both exist at the same time, or maybe one outweighs one or another, right? Like Sunday night when I was in that moment, I was definitely more like 80%, we'll say, pissed off in that moment. So the both and thinking, I feel, can fluctuate. So that's really what I'm going to talk about today and kind of break it down. And this is whether you are studying for the GMAT. And GMAT stands for the Graduate Management Admission Test. So if you've got dreams of getting an MBA and you want to go to a school where a school that requires the GMAT test. I'm pointing at my tank top. Or maybe you're training for a 5K in 3 months, or you want to buy your first house. I feel like I related my current study GMAT story to these key 3 things. And so number 1, write that dream down, or type it, or vision board it, or however you want to approach that. Whatever way that resonates with you, works for you, is powerful for you, and that will help you see the beginning of existence, from just this kind of fragment of your imagination and this kind of untouchable thing, right? Like, so write it down and remind yourself no idea is too crazy. Number 2, make a plan and go for it. So don't spend too much time planning for too long. You don't want to get lost in that loop of, I'm planning and planning. I'm doing all this planning and the research, and I'm going to be ready when that moment is right. Like, I've been there, guilty. I think I've talked about this before, and I felt like that with this podcast and honestly quite a few things. So do just enough planning. I think planning is very important and valuable, but I think find that right balance of not overdoing it. So give yourself an outline, some general guidelines, just enough, I think, to structure it, to get things rolling, and then do your best to be consistent, even if that is just a little bit at a time. So for me, maybe it was an hour a couple times a week. I know I need to be doing more, but let me start with that, right? Like, let me start building it up. If you're the one that's training for that 5K in 3 months. Maybe you're at the place now where you just want to walk 1 mile 3 times a week, right? And start with that and build it up. So come up with that plan wherever you're at, and that'll give you that initial structure. And then, so for my millennials listening, right, there's a song, we get knocked down, but like Chumbawamba taught us, we get back up again. They're never going to keep me down. So get back up when you get knocked down. And that's the third piece that I will talk about tonight. And really that moment and that place that I was in coming out of this past Sunday night and into the beginning of this week. So here I am in the middle of this GMAT battle, and actually I wouldn't say I'm even in the middle of it. I'm pretty early on with it. And so I wouldn't even say that I'm an expert on all of this, right? If I had a lawyer, there you have it. I'm not claiming to be an expert. So there's my legal disclaimer. I shall not be held responsible for if you take any of this advice. But if you do succeed, let me know. And if any of this helps you out, please comment or reach out. Always love hearing the success stories. Or, maybe you're in the middle of that struggling failure challenge story. I mean, that's, like I said, I'm feeling very much in the middle of the battle with this GMAT right now. So if you are subscribing to this podcast, eventually you'll find out how I do on this damn test, because March 19th will be here very quickly, just over a month away. So back to this past Sunday night, taking that test, that example of the sandwiches and how many pieces and bites of sandwich did Carol have? I don't freaking know. Carol, like, just eat the damn sandwich. Like, that's where I was at. That's where I was feeling, I don't care. And I started to go down this path in my head of just, I'm seeing that countdown clock. It's a time test. And so I'm getting worked up and feeling frustrated, and then I'm anxious, and then it just all starts to hit of, why am I even doing this? What, like, no one's telling me to do this. My mom, my dad, family, my manager at work, like, no one is making me do this test. So I started in that moment, even going down all this questioning of, like, why the hell am I even bothering with this? Can I even do this? And then it just kind of, it took over in some ways. So, and I haven't done a test like this in years, or a test in years, let alone a test like this. And I haven't used algebra and the formulas and the equations. A lot of times when I did that first, let's set the foundation test at the very beginning, and then I started studying, I'm finding, oh, well, if I knew that formula existed. And many of them, yeah, I probably learned these formulas back in 9th grade, if not earlier. So most of the math is not challenging, but it is something that I've been out of practice on. I'm not in a field where I'm using that very often. More in a lot of writing and communications and developing and that sort of stuff for my kind of day-to-day job. So definitely had to practice on the math side. And so that was my Sunday night. And honestly, that practice test that I did Sunday night, I did worse than the score I got when I had not studied at all. So pretty frustrating, a combination of things that was happening there. But Monday night came around. If any of you saw that commercial for Squarespace Sunday night, I feel like I totally related, because we're all hustling and working after we maybe log our 9 to 5. We get back up, and now we're working our 5 to 9, right? So shout out to all the my fellow hustlers out there trying to work hard and do your thing even after that 9 to 5, because you've got your own dreams and your own passions. And so once I kind of logged down on that, gear it back up again, swap out the computers, and now I'm studying for the GMAT. So I did get back up again Monday evening, and started for Monday night. It was going back and looking at all the questions and trying to evaluate, okay, which questions did I get wrong, and thinking about for each one, why did I get this wrong? Am I recognizing what type of question is? So that's the focus for that on my GMAT and where I'm at. And thinking back to that first step that I mentioned of having that dream, whatever your goal is, and writing it down. And for me, with this story, in some ways, this started many years ago because yeah, it's already been a decade since I finished my bachelor's degree from the University of South Florida. Go Bulls! And I was looking to pursue a career. So my degree is in public relations. Was looking to pursue a degree within the surf industry. They say, "Oh, do what you love and within your field." And I was like, "Well, what better way than to do public relations in the surf industry?" And Quicksilver was that dream at the time. So not sure what exactly it looked like, but either way, I did not, at the time after graduating, I wasn't going to go on and continue further education. It was more the trend of like, go out, get your real world experience, your internships and your jobs, and start getting out there and working in PR. So naturally, I did just that, right? I road trip to California with my mom, didn't have a job, didn't know anybody, moved into a room I found off Craigslist, started working at a surf shop. That's real world experience, right? PR, sure. In some ways, I don't think that's exactly what the professional mentors were, maybe advising at the time. But fast forward from that a couple of years, fill in the blanks with a whole bunch of stories that I'll fill in on some later episodes. Got my first PR job, and then that was when I started that professional, PR job track. So at that point, really, the higher education dream and thought kind of went to the side, and I was like, that's something I can focus on later. I'll think about, maybe I'll get to that at some point. But I put the power of that thought into the hands of someone else. I didn't put it into the hands of my that first manager. No, like she didn't have it, but I gave that power up to, that energy up to another, put it to the side, and I didn't own it myself. I didn't own it and let it grow and take that kind of shape for myself as something I wanted. And part of that can be okay. Maybe there was some time, and we're going to let that resurface. So that's exactly, I think, what happened. And even the example with this podcast, something that sat there for a while. And then I was like, you know what, kind of get to that point of realization where just got to jump in and go for it. So but I remember I kept thinking, maybe I'll go to school again if an employer pays for that. If someone else pays for it, and I just kind of let it go with that. And then I thought, well, eventually, this past summer, and I started thinking more and more about it, and it started to do that where it would resurface. And I was like, I'm not gonna, you know what? I'm gonna take ownership of this again. And I'm not gonna wait around for something else outside of me to change. I can take action from within and from myself. And so then I started that initial phase of, okay, I'm gonna look, I'm gonna research, and I'm gonna start seeing like what would be involved, what would it take, what are the steps to go back and get a master's, what would it be in? Like that's a lot of questions. And so I started doing that research, trying to answer those questions, just some Google searches, or what does my company provide, if anything at all. And that first step, it's like, okay, well, the GMAT, what is this? Let me learn about this test and register for it. Picked a date. I'm like, okay, a few months out, I think this was late November, and I was like, February, that'll work. P.S. It's February now, and I'm not taking the GMAT in February, but I did register for that GMAT, and I started making a list of different schools to consider. And like that step 2 that I mentioned, starting building out that structure. My friend Nathan, he helped me find a site, Empower GMAT. So I started finding the resources that could help me get to that first step. And freaking, I'm finding that this first step is a lot. It feels like a leap, or, really it's running uphill. When I hit that treadmill on the like incline 8 and they want you to run at 10 miles an hour, it kind of feels like that too. So fitness or studying for the GMAT, in a lot of ways, they can feel pretty much the same thing. At the beginning, doing a little studying, but then I was realizing, it's the end of January. Like it's hitting me. This February date's going to come real quick. So you know what? We go along, we got to improvise, we got to evaluate and maybe modify. So I pushed that initial February GMAT test date back to March 19th. And that's fine right now. I'm good with that, but it kind of kicked me into gear, right? Like I shifted into six. I'm driving my Tacoma, shifted into sixth gear, and it's like, okay, now we got to get moving, hustle, focus down, and it kind of prioritize and think about what are your priorities, and can this be the focus for this defined period of time? Like, I get it. We all have a lot of things going on we all do, right? Very few of us have the luxury to totally just have maybe just one thing alone happening completely independently of all other things. So you might be studying for the GMAT, but you're also, I'm working my full-time job as well. You might even have kids. You might be having job insecurity. You might not even have a job, and you're balancing so much. So, when you're approaching this, give yourself some gratitude. Know that you're working, you're hustling, and give yourself some credit, right? Like, we're working hard, and make the most of everything we've got. So I was taking these practice quizzes, and yeah, there was quizzes I'd score 20%, like 20%. That's like a triple failing grade. I felt like I was so pissed that I wasn't even pissed. I was like numb to that feeling. A few quizzes later, 100%. Okay, so now I'm high on life, felt motivated. I'm stoked. This is amazing. I can do this, right? Took another quiz, and then scored even lower. So it's up and down, and there's going to be those highs and lows. So finally, for this third stage, and back to for the millennials again, Chumbawamba, we're going to blast it back to 1999, I think it was, and get back up again. So I know it's tough, and I absolutely question myself. Why am I even doing this? Why? I was knocked down Sunday night. Freaking one question about Carol eating a sandwich times 30 of those. But yeah, knocked me down. I was like, why am I doing this? I don't know. And I was falling into that doubt. So it's absolutely easy to fall into this doubt. And maybe, sure, it sounds so easy to do. And right now, like, if I was telling myself on Sunday night, oh yeah, just get back up again, I would have said, F you, let me lie down here for a minute. No, I'm done. Like, checking out. And you know what? Take that minute. Maybe it's an hour, maybe it's more than a minute, but don't let it be years. Brush yourself off and get back up again. Dust yourself off and try again, try again. If at first you don't succeed. So as I'm recording this today, not totally sure exactly what's going to happen. My podcast is on this bi-weekly-ish kind of cadence. I scored an impressively low score on that practice GMAT. I'm just over a month away. But you know what? We're going to get back up. We're going to try it again. And if you can name that artist, if at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again, try again. Comment with that artist. I'll send you some banana muffins, because Chris and I were doing a lot of banana muffin baking during COVID. But until next time, listeners, thank you so much. Remember those 3 steps, and think about that. I'm right there with you, trying to get through my goals of this GMAT battle. Write it down, vision board it, realize your dream, make that outline, make the plan, start to have some structure to it, but also stay flexible, be nimble, and know that things can adjust. And when you fall down, maybe you lay there for a minute, maybe you lay there for an hour, but it's important. Just get up, keep going. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.